December 14th, 1941. Richmond, California. Kaiser Shipyard No. 2. The arc welder flares white-hot, brighter than the winter sun reflecting off San Francisco Bay. The smell hits first: burned steel, hot paint, ozone, followed by the sharp crackle of electricity biting into metal. Henry J. Kaiser stands just far enough back to keep his coat from catching sparks, hands buried in his pockets, eyes fixed on the seam forming along the ship's hull. The plate isn't being riveted, it's being welded. A young worker in a leather hood drags the torch forward in a steady line, molten steel pooling and cooling behind it like a scar sealing shut. The hull section, taller than a house, rests in a steel cradle, not on a slipway, but on dry ground, surrounded by cranes, forklifts, and men moving with practiced urgency. This is not how ships are supposed to be built. Across the Atlantic, German U-boat commanders are already celebrating. Britain is bleeding tonnage faster than it can replace it. Every week, more cargo ships vanish beneath the waves. Coal, food, fuel, ammunition, all gone. Naval architects say it takes 6 months to build a cargo ship properly, rivet by rivet, frame by frame. Germany is counting on that math. Kaiser is about to break it. Only a week earlier, on December 7th, the news from Pearl Harbor had ripped through American shipyards like a shockwave. Radios blared. Work stopped. Men stared at one another in silence before turning back to their tasks with something new in their movements: fear, anger, urgency. America didn't just need ships. It needed more ships than physics seemed to allow. Kaiser knew this. He wasn't a naval architect. He wasn't even a traditional engineer. He was a builder of dams, roads, concrete, and he hated inefficiency with a near-religious intensity. Riveting offended him. Too slow, too dependent on skilled specialists, too many steps. Welding was different. One man, one torch, one continuous motion, and most importantly, it could be taught quickly. The foreman shouts over the noise as another prefabricated section is lowered into place by crane. A steel block, pre-assembled miles away, swings gently before settling against the growing hull. Men guide it in with gloved hands and shouted curses. The welder steps forward again. Kaiser watches the clock. This section took hours, not weeks. The idea had sounded insane when he first proposed it to the Maritime Commission. Build ships like automobiles. Assemble them from modules. Weld instead of rivet. Eliminate bottlenecks. Replace master craftsmen with trained crews. Experienced shipbuilders scoffed. Welded hulls, they warned, would crack. They'd fail at sea. Rivets, at least, gave warning. A leaking seam. A popped head. Welding would fail catastrophically. Kaiser didn't argue theory. He argued numbers. He'd asked. No one liked the answer. Back in Richmond, the skeletal outline of a cargo ship, what will soon be called a Liberty ship, rises faster by the day. Men swarm over it like ants over a fallen branch. None of them know the ship's name yet. It doesn't matter. There will be hundreds, then thousands. A welder pauses, lifting his hood. Sweat streaks his face despite the cold. He looks up at the half-finished hull towering above him and shakes his head. "Never seen anything like it," he mutters. Navy, nor the Germans. Across the ocean, in a concrete bunker along the French coast, Capitaine Lieutenant Eric Top pores over shipping reports. Sinkings are good, very good, but something is off. The tonnage curve isn't dropping the way intelligence predicted. British convoys are battered, but not starving. Replacement ships are appearing, too quickly. Top circles a number in pencil. Another Liberty ship launched, another convoy replenished. He doesn't know about the welding arcs burning through the night on America's west coast. He doesn't know about the prefabricated hull sections rolling off assembly lines. He doesn't know that the old rules of shipbuilding have just been thrown overboard. Back in Richmond, Kaiser steps closer as the welding crew finishes the seam. The metal cools, darkening from orange to dull gray. He reaches out. Not touching, just hovering his hand near the steel, feeling the heat radiate. This seam would have taken dozens of riveters days to complete. It took one man minutes. Around him, the yard doesn't sleep. Floodlights snap on as the sky darkens. Another shift arrives. Another section is craned into place. Another welder sparks to life. Kaiser smiles. Not broadly, not triumphantly, but with the quiet satisfaction of a man watching time itself bend. If this works, If the ships hold together, then Germany's submarines won't be able to sink them fast enough. The war at sea won't be decided by torpedoes. It will be decided here, by fire, steel, and speed. February 8, 1942. Richmond, California. Kaiser Shipyard. The first Liberty ship slides into the water without ceremony. No band, no champagne bottle, no speeches from admirals. Just a groan of steel, a shudder through the slipway, and then the hull moves, slow at first, then unstoppable, until it meets the bay with a deep, echoing splash. Men cheer anyway. Henry Kaiser doesn't. He's already looking past it. Because one ship doesn't matter. 100 barely matter. What matters is whether the next one can be built faster. Inside the yard, clipboards replace blueprints. Timers replace tradition. Kaiser's engineers walk the floor with stopwatches, breaking every task into steps, shaving minutes wherever they can. The hull is no longer a single object. It's a collection of blocks, each one built in parallel somewhere else in the yard. One crew fabricates bow sections. Another assembles engine rooms. Another works on deck houses. They don't wait for one stage to finish before starting the next. Cranes lift entire rooms into place like toys. And everywhere, welders. Most of them had never touched a ship before the war. Farm boys, mechanics, women fresh from factories, men too old or unfit for the draft. They're trained in weeks, not years. They practice on scrap until their hands stop shaking. They learn one seam, then another. They don't need to understand the whole ship. They only need to make their piece hold. Traditional shipbuilders watch in horror. Welding failures begin appearing almost immediately. Cracks form along seams in cold water. Entire hulls split during stress tests. Engineers panic. The critics feel vindicated. This is what we warned you about, they say. Kaiser doesn't stop the yards. He sends for metallurgists. The problem isn't welding, it's steel chemistry. The new alloys behave differently in cold temperatures. Welding changes the grain structure. Microfractures form under stress. So Kaiser changes the steel. New formulations, different heat treatments, altered welding procedures. The solution doesn't come from theory. It comes from testing, breaking, and rebuilding again and again. Ships crack, then fewer ships crack, then almost none. The yards never slow down. By summer 1942, something unprecedented happens. A Liberty ship is launched in just over 2 weeks, then another in 10 days, then one in less than 5. The record-breaking vessel, SS Robert E. Peary, goes from keel laying to launch in 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes. The crowd erupts. Kaiser allows himself a grin this time. Across the Atlantic, the numbers finally start to alarm German naval intelligence. Sinkings remain high, but total Allied tonnage is no longer shrinking. It's growing. U-boat captains report the same thing again and again. We sink them, and they come back. Convoys are larger. Escorts are thicker. Losses that once crippled supply lines are now shrugged off. The math has changed. In a submarine pen at Lorient, Captain Lieutenant Eric Topp listens as a radio operator reads off another intelligence summary. American ship production numbers. Revised upward. Again. Topp exhales slowly. So they build faster than we can sink, he says. No one answers, because no one knows how to stop that. Back in Richmond, Kaiser walks the yard at night. Floodlights cast hard shadows across steel hulls rising in every direction. Sparks rain like fireworks. The air hums with cranes, generators, shouted orders. This is no longer a shipyard. It's a factory, and factories don't get tired. Kaiser pauses beside a newly trained welder, barely 20, laying a perfect seam along a hull section. He watches for a moment, then moves on. The war at sea is no longer about tactics. It's about throughput, and throughput is something Germany cannot torpedo. September 4th, 1942. North Atlantic. Convoy HX-209. The sea is iron gray, waves slamming against the hull of the SS Jeremiah O'Brien, with a hollow booming rhythm that vibrates through the deck plates. Below the waterline, the ship groans and flexes, welded seams holding as the Atlantic tests every inch of steel. Third Mate William Grant grips the railing and scans the horizon. The air smells of diesel and cold salt. Somewhere beneath the surface, he knows, a U-boat could be listening. He has sailed on older ships before, riveted ships. They rattled like skeletons in heavy seas. This one feels different, tighter, solid. The welds don't creak. They hum. Grant checks his watch. They are on schedule. When the first torpedo detonates 3 ships ahead, the sound reaches them seconds later. A deep, concussive thud that lifts water into the air like a wall. Flames rise. Men shout. The convoy tightens instinctively. Escorts racing toward the explosion. Grant waits for the order to abandon ship. It never comes. They keep going. This is the new reality of the Battle of the Atlantic. Liberty ships are not invincible. They burn. They sink. Men die. But for every one lost, 2 more are already halfway to completion back in American yards. German commanders feel it first at sea. U-boat logs begin to change tone. Early confidence gives way to frustration. Sinkings no longer feel decisive. They feel temporary. Wolfpack attacks inflict damage, but the supply lines heal almost immediately. The ocean swallows ships. The factories replace them faster. In Berlin, naval staff officers stare at production charts in disbelief. The curves defy expectations. American output climbs steadily, relentlessly. Liberty ships roll off the ways in numbers no pre-war planner thought possible. This was not supposed to happen. The entire U-boat strategy rested on one assumption. Britain would starve before the United States could mobilize. But the welding torches of Richmond, Baltimore, and Mobile burned day and night, erasing the advantage of surprise and early success. Back aboard the Jeremiah O'Brien, the convoy reaches port battered but intact. Cranes unload cargo within hours. Ammunition, trucks, food, fuel. The ship barely cools before being ordered out again. No long refits, no waiting for riveters. The welded seams hold. In a briefing room along the French coast, Admiral Karl Dönitz listens as another report confirms the trend. Sinkings remain high, yet Allied shipping capacity continues to expand. Dönitz rubs his temples. "They are building faster than we can destroy," he says quietly. For a naval war, there is no more dangerous sentence. By 1943, the tide turns decisively. Escort carriers fill the air with patrol planes. Radar tightens the net. Depth charges hunt relentlessly. U-boats die in increasing numbers. But even if they hadn't, even if the submarines had remained deadly, the outcome was already sealed. The Atlantic is no longer a choke point. It's a highway. And welded steel is flowing across it in an endless stream. November 12, 1943, Richmond, California. Kaiser Shipyard. The siren sounds and another hull slides free. Workers pause only long enough to watch the ship touch water, then turn back to their stations. No applause, no photographs. Launches have become routine. Background noise in a yard that now measures success in hours, not ceremonies. Henry Kaiser stands on a catwalk overlooking the slips, a clipboard tucked under his arm. Below him, 3 Liberty ships are in different stages of assembly at the same time. One is being welded at the keel. Another has cranes lowering its deckhouse into place. A third is already being painted with gray camouflage. All of them will be finished soon. This is no longer innovation. It's momentum. The welders work in shifts that blur together. Day crews hand off to night crews without comment. Sparks fly in the rain. Floodlights turn darkness into artificial day. Trains arrive with steel plate on one track, leave with completed sections on another. The yard doesn't care about weather. It doesn't care about holidays. It cares about output. Kaiser's method has spread. East Coast yards adopt the same modular construction. So do yards in the Gulf. Welding replaces riveting across the industry. The learning curve flattens. Efficiency rises. A Liberty ship every few days becomes normal, then expected. Out at sea, the effect is brutal. U-boat commanders report sinking the same hull designs again and again. They recognize the ships by silhouette, by deck layout, by the way they break apart when hit. And still, the convoys keep coming. German torpedo stocks run low, crews grow exhausted. The psychological impact of sinking a ship, once a morale boost, fades when intelligence reports show replacement tonnage exceeding losses. The enemy has turned destruction into a wasted effort. In Washington, production charts replace battle maps as the most important documents in the room. Admirals argue for escort strategies, but the underlying confidence is new. Even if losses spike, the system can absorb it. The Liberty ship has changed the definition of victory at sea. Back in Richmond, Kaiser walks past a board listing build times. Numbers are crossed out and rewritten lower. 12 days. 9. 7. Speed is no longer a goal. It's a habit. He stops beside a young engineer adjusting a welding schedule. "Where's the delay?" Kaiser asks. The engineer points to a crane bottleneck. "Fix it," Kaiser says, already moving on. The Germans never find an answer. They cannot bomb the yards. They cannot sabotage the factories. They cannot outsink an economy that has learned to build ships the way it builds cars. The Atlantic is flooded, not with water, but with steel. And for the first time, Germany is forced to confront a truth it has avoided since 1941. This war will not be decided by brilliance. It will be decided by capacity. Type continue to generate the next section. May 8, 1945. Richmond, California. The yard is quieter now. Welding arcs still flash, but fewer. The frantic urgency has faded into something steadier, almost reflective. Completed ships line the waterfront, their gray hulls streaked with rust and salt, names painted across the bows like a roll call of forgotten towns and people. Henry Kaiser stands at the edge of the pier, older now, shoulders heavier, watching a Liberty ship ease away from the dock. Tugboats guide it gently, their engines rumbling low. There is no rush. The war in Europe is over. In the Atlantic, the U-boats are silent. What remains floats above the water, tens of thousands of cargo ships that crossed oceans without ceremony, carrying everything from tanks to bread, from fuel to men. Many were sunk. Most were replaced. All of them existed because someone had dared to abandon tradition. Welding did not just change shipbuilding. It changed the math of war. German naval planners had believed the Atlantic could be strangled, that the flow of material could be cut faster than it could be restored. They never imagined an enemy that would treat losses as variables, expected, planned for, absorbed. They never imagined a shipyard that never slept. Back in Richmond, Kaiser watches the ship disappear into the mist. He knows that historians will talk about battles and admirals and weapons. Few will talk about welders, about cranes, about clipboards and timers and men teaching steel to move faster than submarines. But Kaiser understands. The Liberty ship was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be fast enough. And in a war of attrition, fast enough is unbeatable. The arc welders fall silent one by one as shifts end. The yard exhales, the steel cools. The Atlantic remains open. The war was decided long before the torpedoes ran out. It was decided the moment welding replaced riveting, and time itself was forced to surrender.